When His Majesty gently pulled me into his embrace, I heard his inner thoughts. Just endure a little longer. I won't have to see this disgusting woman much longer. If it weren't for the fact that the National Master said only her lifespan could be used to save Rou Wei, I wouldn't have shown her any favor. Look at her with that starry-eyed expression. Does she really think I'm madly in love with her? Rou Wei is his empress whom he has neglected for many years, lingering on a sickbed and now on the brink of death. It turns out he made me his consort and showered me with affection only to get me to fall in love with him, deceive me, and transfer my lifespan to the empress. But in the end, I really did die. Yet, he went mad with grief, willing to exchange all his own lifespan just to see me once more. 1. I was made a consort with the half-court ceremony of the empress by Xin Zhouyan. To show his favor and to make up for not being able to make me empress, he specially granted me a title, Chen. On our wedding night, the Changla Palace was filled with joy. Xin Zhouyan smiled, took my hand, and placed it on his chest. Jingning, the empress has been with me since childhood and has done nothing wrong. I have no reason to depose her. But I promise you, from now on, I will only favor you. I blushed, lowering my head shyly. His kiss landed on my forehead. At that moment, I seemed to hear a very soft sigh. Ah, I've been deceived again. I looked around in confusion, trying to find the source of the sound, but it seemed the sound had vanished into thin air. Xin Zhouyan held me close. Jingning, what's wrong? His warm breath brushed against my neck. My heart raced like a fluttering deer. Your Majesty, it's nothing. All right, Jingning, focus. We have to do what should be done on our wedding night. He smiled and kissed my neck. That night, the candlelight flickered, and the dragon and phoenix danced together. 2. Xin Zhouyan and I met by chance at a New Year's palace banquet. I was so tired from staying up the night before reading a novel that I didn't want to deal with the social interactions at the banquet. I used changing clothes as an excuse, told my mother I was leaving, and secretly slipped out of the Qingyan Hall, running to a pavilion in the Imperial garden to sleep on a stone table. When I woke up, I saw a handsome young man in fine robes sitting nearby, smiling at me. Awake now? I was startled and stammered. Why, yes, I'm awake. He seemed quite interested. Looking at your attire, you must be a young lady from a family attending the banquet? Why, if the music and dance at the banquet didn't suit you, would you rather come here to sleep? I turned bright red. Then why are you here? He sighed. Well, it's my fault. I didn't check the weather when I left with my servants. I was supposed to go to Qingyan Hall, but it started raining. I had to take shelter here while waiting for them to bring me an umbrella. I looked up and saw it was pouring rain outside. We chatted a bit, and then a maid's out-of-breath voice came from outside. Your Highness, the umbrella is here. Suddenly, I stared at the man in front of me in shock. Why, you're the crown prince? He signaled to the maid to take me back to Qingyan Hall first. Then he turned to me with a gentle smile. Miss you, see you another time. He even knew my name. Later, whenever I thought of his smiling face, I would blush and my heart would race. Once, my mother mentioned that I would soon come of age and needed to consider marriage. Awning, look, I've selected several good matches for you. See if any of them catch your eye. My father had guarded the frontier for many years, and the emperor had always treated the Yu family well, with continuous rewards. Thus, the candidates my mother chose were all from well-known noble families. As I browsed through the list, I casually remarked, I've heard the crown prince is exceptionally talented, and the emperor has high expectations for him. My mother immediately looked at me. Her gaze was sharp. Awning, do you like the crown prince? I lowered my head, my face flushing red again. But Awning, the crown prince is already engaged to the crown princess, whom he has grown up with. Although she is not in good health, he still cherishes her very much. Not to mention, our Yu family's daughters rarely become concubines, and even if you insist on marrying into the East Palace, life won't be easy. And no, it won't. I didn't tell my mother that I had met the crown prince again at the Lantern Festival that year. 3. At that time, he was holding a koi lantern, smiling as he walked towards me. Miss you, we meet again. Look at you, so lively. Last night, you didn't stay up late reading novels, did you? I was both embarrassed and angry. Your Highness, I don't read novels as much as I used to. He sighed theatrically. Such a pity. Last time you told me that the novel you were reading was about a koi fish turning into a human. I saw you earlier and even bought this koi lantern to give to you. Now it seems I might not be able to give you this gift after all. He withdrew his hand, which had been holding out the lantern. I quickly grabbed his hand. Your Highness, I want it. Please don't take it back. He turned his face with a barely contained smile. I realized he was just teasing me. Your Highness, you. Seeing me getting upset, he hurriedly pressed the lantern into my hands and, like a magician, took out a paper-wrapped candied fruit skewer from his sleeve. How about this candied fruit skewer as an apology? He actually knew that my favorite treat was candied fruit skewers. That night, he accompanied me around the Lantern Festival Market. When it was time to part, I felt a bit reluctant to say goodbye. After struggling for a while, I asked him, Your Highness, will we have the chance to meet again? He looked at me with a bright smile in his eyes. Don't worry, we will. Because of his words, I couldn't bring myself to agree to my mother's marriage arrangements. My mother and father were very affectionate, and they had only my older brother and me. Now, with my brother and father at the frontier, my mother was left with only me. She put my marriage on hold, wanting to keep me around a bit longer. I looked forward every day to meeting Shin Zhouyan again. But when I finally saw him, it was under such a dire circumstance. The Emperor said General Yu is suspected of treason and collaborating with the enemy. Immediately search the Yu residence. There must be evidence of his communication with the enemy. My mother held me close, looking helplessly at the fully armed soldiers rummaging through our home. Bind the family of the traitor and throw them into the inner prison, awaiting the Emperor's judgment. I gathered my courage and said to the commander, My father is innocent. Besides, he hasn't been convicted yet. On what grounds are you arresting my mother and me? The Emperor only said to search the residence, not to harm us. You can't touch us. The man sneered. Such a sharp-tongued miss you. Bind them up. Let's see who dares to stop me. Stop. The heavy door was suddenly kicked open. I looked anxiously towards the door. It was Shun Zhouyan, descending like a deity. He threw the bright yellow Imperial edict at the head soldier, causing him to fall to the ground and struggle to get up. Take a good look at this edict. It's written by the Emperor himself, declaring General Yu's innocence and that the real traitors are others. His gaze was filled with menace. Lord Sun, how dare you act before receiving orders? Do you not value your head? He quickly ran to my side and held me tightly in his trembling arms. Jing Ning, I've come to save you. Clinging to him, I finally allowed myself to cry. 4. Consort Chen, slow down. My thoughts were abruptly pulled back to the present. After that incident, I was resolute in wanting to marry Shin Zhouyan. Though my mother disapproved, she no longer voiced opposition. But Shun Zhouyan held my face and said, Jing Ning, could you wait a little while for me? Let me finish my current tasks, and I'll give you a grand wedding. Later, I learned that his current tasks were taking on the heavy responsibilities from his father. The Emperor was seriously ill, and the court doctors said he didn't have much time left. Shun Zhouyan needed to learn quickly how to be a good emperor in the remaining time of his father's life. A month after he ascended the throne, he fulfilled his promise, making me his consort and bringing me into the palace. One afternoon, feeling bored, I wandered around the palace. By chance, I ended up near Feng Yi Palace. This was the residence of past empresses, always filled with flowers. But now, as the residence of Shin Zhouyan's first wife, Empress Rou Wei, it seemed desolate and forlorn. Since entering the palace, I had requested to meet the Empress. But Shin Zhouyan had frowned and said impatiently, Why go see that sickly woman? Feng Yi Palace is unlucky. Be careful not to catch her illness. Aside from me, there were a few concubines he brought from the Crown Prince's residence. He probably said the same to them. In any case, the practice of consorts paying respects to the Empress in the palace had become a mere formality. I made up my mind and walked towards Feng Yi Palace. In the courtyard, a few clusters of withering flowers, looking like they hadn't been tended to for a long time, grew faintly. The pond in the rock garden had long dried up, with a few fish lying belly up on the edge of the pond. I sighed softly. I felt an unexpected sympathy for Empress Xiao. No matter what, she was a daughter of a noble family, Xin Zhouyan's first wife. Yet, she had fallen to such a state. At that moment, the strange voice from the wedding night suddenly sounded again. Why are you pitying her? The one you should pity is yourself. Who? I was startled and looked around for the source of the voice. But it vanished again. Your Highness, what's wrong? Huan Yun, who was supporting me, looked puzzled. I asked her, Huan Yun, did you just hear any strange sounds? Huan Yun shook her head. This Feng Yi Palace is so desolate, there isn't even a maid guarding the door. How could there be anyone else? I composed myself. Could it be that I had a hallucination from staying up late playing chess with the Emperor last night? I patted my forehead, forcing down the unease, and knocked on the door of Feng Yi Palace. 5. Who? The palace door opened, and a young maid's face appeared. Seeing me, she looked at me with some suspicion. Which consort are you? I smiled gently and said, I am Consort Chen. I came to visit the Empress today. I couldn't tell if it was just my imagination, but I felt that the maid's expression changed slightly when she heard my title. Consort Chen, please come in. As soon as I stepped into the palace, a strong odor of medicinal herbs assailed my nose. However, Feng Yi Palace didn't look as desolate as it had from the outside. The furnishings were classical and elegant. Despite the summer heat, the palace was cool inside, likely thanks to plenty of ice provided by the palace staff. It seemed the Empress wasn't as neglected by the Emperor as rumored. Cough, cough. A heart-wrenching cough suddenly came from inside. Consort Chen pays her respects to the Empress. May the Empress live in peace and safety. She lay on the bed in the inner chamber, so I could only bow from outside. Eventually, the coughing subsided. Consort Chen. Qing Rua, help Consort Chen up quickly. Then there was another sound of vomiting. Qing Rua helped me up, speaking courteously. Consort Chen, as you can see, the Empress is unwell and cannot receive you. She has received your kind gesture, so please leave early. I nodded and was about to turn away when I caught a glimpse of a figure behind the screen. My heart skipped a beat. Empress Xiao was so thin she seemed barely able to stand. Her face, partially visible, was as pale as paper. Your Highness, endure a little longer. The Emperor said he will extend your life soon. Seeing me standing there in a daze, Qing Rua's gaze grew serious. Consort, are you not leaving? I left Feng Yi Palace with a heavy heart. The scorching heat outside felt like a different world compared to the coolness inside. And then there was what the maid had said. Extend life? What did that mean? Everything seemed to take on an eerie tint. At that moment, the voice reappeared. Enough, enough. You're already so pitiful. Some things you should know. 6. After dinner, Xin Zhouyan held me tenderly in his arms. Jingning, the moon is beautiful tonight. Shall we go out and admire it? But at that moment, I heard his true thoughts. Endure a little longer. Soon I won't have to endure this repulsive woman anymore. If it weren't for the national teacher saying that only her life could be exchanged for Rou Wei's, I wouldn't have to favor her. Look at her with her hopeful face. Does she really think I'm in love with her? I was shaken to the core. I instinctively pushed him away. Jingning, what's wrong? He looked at me with concern. Are you feeling unwell? His thoughts were laced with blatant sarcasm. I've been deceiving her so thoroughly for so long, finally making her completely devoted. When the 15th of July comes, it will be the day of the life exchange. By then, Rou Wei will be saved. As he thought this, his gaze at me grew even gentler. Jingning, if you're not feeling well, you should rest early. I'll rest with you. I fought to suppress my terror and force myself to remain calm. Your Majesty, I visited the Empress today. At the mention of the Empress, his expression tensed. It was laughable. I had once thought he disliked the empress because of her illness. But I hadn't expected him to show such a reaction when someone he cared about was mentioned. Didn't I tell you not to go to Feng-Yi Palace? Be careful not to catch her illness. His thoughts were, damn it, why did she go to Feng-Yi Palace? If she disturbed Rou Wei's rest, what then? And if she discovers something? Then his thoughts carried some contempt. Forget it. She's just a daughter of a warrior with no cunning. How could she think of something as complex as a life exchange? I silently mocked him and said respectfully, Your Majesty, you should visit the Empress. She's been coughing heavily, and she looks terribly thin. Shen Zhouyan's face showed a fleeting hint of concern. All right, Jing Ning, rest well. I'll come to see you again tomorrow. He pretended to be calm and untroubled, but his steps were unusually heavy as he left the palace. I sat in the room for a long time. When I came to my senses, my face was wet with tears. Alas, poor thing. The voice sighed with pity. Seeing you so pitiful, I'll tell you the truth. 7. The owner of the voice identified themselves as Heaven's Way. Do you know about the life exchange technique? It's when two people with similar destinies exchange their remaining lifespans. You know, with the Empress in such a state, she doesn't have much time left. And you Jingning, happen to be the woman the national teacher calculated to have a similar destiny to her. I gripped the edge of the table tightly. So, Shen Zhouyan's approach to me from the beginning had another purpose? Heaven's Way sneered. At least you're not completely foolish. You also heard, in just over a month, it will be the 15th of July. On the 15th of July, the Ghost Festival, it's the best time for a life exchange. By then, Shen Zhouyan will deceive you into stepping onto the life exchange platform to steal your lifespan. My voice was choked with sobs and bitterness. And what will happen to me after the exchange? Heaven's Way paused. After your lifespan is transferred to the Empress, you will naturally die. And after death, your soul will scatter. I could no longer hold back. The tears I had just managed to stop flowed down uncontrollably. Why? Why are you doing this to me? Heaven's Way seemed to show some reluctance. I felt so sorry for you, going against fate to tell you this. Now, I must return and face punishment. Take care. I will come back to see you after my punishment. He vanished instantly. I had a splitting headache. Returning to my bed, I tried to rest for a moment. My gaze fell unexpectedly on the koi lantern Shen Zhouyan had given me, hanging by the bed. I forced a bitter smile. I tore down the lantern and threw it violently onto the ground. Not satisfied, I cried and stomped on it, until it was smashed into pieces, unrecognizable from its original shape. I had never imagined that receiving that lantern from him would cost me my life. 8. Jing Ning, what's wrong with you lately? Have I displeased you? Why are you always so unhappy? When Shen Zhouyan looked at me with such deep concern, his thoughts were harshly sarcastic. What's wrong with her? In a few days, it will be the Ghost Festival. The life exchange technique requires the person being exchanged to willingly step onto the platform. I hope she doesn't cause any trouble. Thus, his expression towards me became even more gentle. Jing Ning, don't be sad. As long as you can be happy, I will agree to anything you want. I looked at his sincere eyes and laughed bitterly, tears falling down. Then, Your Majesty, can you depose the Empress and make me the Empress instead? As expected, his expression darkened again. Jing Ning, how many times have I told you? I can give you anything except the position of the Empress. Are you dissatisfied with the title of consort? Then I'll promote you to the Imperial consort, how about that? His expression was agitated. He reached out, taking my hand. Jing Ning, I've said I will be with you for a lifetime. Believe me, I am sincere to you, okay? Suddenly, I felt exhausted. I let him pull me into his embrace. Your Majesty, when did you fall in love with me? He seemed taken aback. This woman is really troublesome. I, of course, fell for you the first time I saw you in the Imperial garden. His smile was still as charming as ever. His eyes sparkled like falling stars. At that time, Someone was sleeping so soundly on the stone table in the pavilion. She looked incredibly adorable. He reached out and pinched my cheek. A chill ran through me. Perhaps that meeting wasn't as coincidental as it seemed. Among all the paths to the Qing Yan Palace, he just happened to choose the pavilion where I was sheltering from the rain. I suddenly remembered the incident when the Yu family was investigated. It was after that event that my mother finally agreed to let me marry him. Could it be his doing as well? My doubts grew stronger. I decided to probe indirectly. Your Majesty, what was the reason behind the investigation of the Yu family? Although you saved my mother and me, and a late emperor later cleared the Yu family's name, I've always been puzzled. Shen Zhouyan's expression remained calm, showing no sign of anything. But his thoughts came flooding in. She wouldn't have discovered that I set this up, would she? Anyway, the traces of framing the Yu family have been erased by me, so she won't know. She will only know that I personally cleared the Yu family's name later. She should be grateful to me. My suspicions were confirmed. I laughed foolishly. He looked puzzled. Jing Ning, what's wrong with you? I raised my tear-filled eyes. His image was already unclear to me. Your Majesty, what have I done wrong that you want my life?
9.
Shen Zhouyan's face showed a trace of panic. Jing Ning, are you ill? Are you confused? He placed his hand on my forehead. You don't have a fever. I forcefully pushed his hand away. Don't touch me. From the beginning, you've schemed to meet me. It's because the physician said the empress doesn't have much time left, and you chose me to exchange lives for her, right? This time, he was thoroughly alarmed. Jing Ning, what are you saying? Calm down. Whatever someone told you, it's nonsense. I suddenly broke free from his embrace. I stood up and ran toward the door. I heard his flustered voice. Someone, bring the consort back. Make sure to protect her and prevent any accidents.
Yes.
If something happened to me, who would replace his Rou Wei? A self-mocking smile curved on my lips. I quickened my pace. In my mind, there was only one thought. I didn't want to go back to face Shen Zhouyan. Consort, be careful. I hid from the guards behind the artificial mountain in the Imperial garden. The guards' voices faded away. I sighed in relief. Leaning against the mountain, I trembled. Where should I go now? The person I thought loved me deeply only wanted my life. Jing Ning, Jing Ning. Suddenly, a familiar voice appeared behind me. I shivered violently. Shen Zhouyan was slowly approaching me, with small steps. Jing Ning, come back with me. Let me explain. I looked at him coldly. Your Majesty, even if I die here today, I will not go back with you to complete that life exchange. He shouted anxiously. Jing Ning, don't back away. Stop, stop. Suddenly, I felt my feet slip. Amidst Shen Zhouyan's shouts, I fell from the high, artificial mountain. After that, I lost consciousness.
10.
Jing Ning, you've just recovered from your illness. You need to rest more and not overthink. Shen Zhouyan sat by my bedside, gently brushing my stray hair aside. I nodded drowsily. He looked at me and sighed. Rest for now. I'll read some documents. I grabbed his sleeve. He turned with a complex expression. Are you the emperor, my husband? I looked up at him timidly. Then, could my husband stay with me for a while? A trace of pain appeared in his eyes. He hesitated but eventually took my hand. Yes, I'll stay with you. Holding his hand, I finally managed to fall asleep peacefully. In the drowsy haze, I seemed to hear someone speaking. Your Majesty, the consort fell from the artificial mountain and hit her head. She currently has lost her memory, making it a great opportunity. You can make her fall in love with you again, and she will surely listen to you and willingly step onto the life exchange platform. I turned restlessly. What life exchange platform? This voice was disturbing my sleep. Shen Zhouyan remained silent for a while. She's in poor health now, and I feel a bit reluctant. Your Majesty, it's too late. The voice was urgent. If we miss this ghost festival, we'll have to wait another 6 months. Can the Empress hold on that long? Shen Zhouyan paused. Fine, I'll consider what you said. Handle the life exchange arrangements for now. He returned to the inner room, and I lay there with wide open eyes, turning them around. He was startled. Jing Ning, you're awake? I felt a bit embarrassed and covered half my face with a blanket. Husband, I can't sleep well without you by my side. I asked cautiously, with hope. Can you stay with me a little longer, so I can sleep? He was silent for a while. For some reason, when he looked up, I saw a slight tear in his eye. He walked to my side and held me in his arms. Sleep, Jing Ning. Have sweet dreams. 11. Since that illness, I've been feeling mentally drained. Sometimes, even while sitting by the window cutting paper, I could doze off and fall asleep. When I woke up, I would see Shin Zhouyan's face full of concern.
He was clearly worried about my health.
But he still forced a smile and comforted me. Jing Ning, I had someone make a carp lantern for you. Do you like it? I took the carp lantern, examined it from all angles, and pursed my lips. It's uninteresting. I let go of it and set it aside. Shin Zhouyan was silent for a moment and then asked, How about I take you out of the palace to visit a market? I widened my eyes. I grabbed his sleeve. Really? Can we? A new old maid had been attending me recently. She said I had forgotten the palace rules and needed to learn some etiquette. For example, the consort should stay in the palace and not go out. Since I woke up, the eunuchs and maids around me were all unfamiliar. When talking to them, they were always very cautious, even avoiding looking at me. So when Shin Zhouyan suddenly proposed to take me out, I was actually very happy. He insisted I was weak and afraid I might catch a cold, so he wrapped me up in an extra layer of clothing. Although autumn is approaching, it's not that cold yet. I grumbled, but still let him dress me. He held my hand as we walked through the bustling market. When we passed a candied hawthorn stall, he stopped. Jing Ning, you used to love candied hawthorns.
Do you want some?
I shook my head listlessly. Is that so? I don't really want any. He didn't say anything, just silently patted my head. He held my hand more tightly. As we passed the moat, I saw many bright river lanterns floating on the water. My eyes lit up. Husband, I want to release a river lantern. Since waking up, I've gotten used to calling him husband instead of Your Majesty. The old maid teaching me palace rules said this was improper. But Shin Zhouyan just smiled and said, Let her be. He nodded and tightened my clothing a bit more. He went to a nearby stall and bought a river lantern for me. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a stall in the distance, making clay figurines. I ran over excitedly and watched the stall owner, making clay figures with great interest. From afar, I heard someone calling my name. Jing Ning. I turned around. Shin Zhouyan was holding 2 river lanterns, pushing through the crowd, calling out my name, and searching for me like a headless chicken.
12.
I laughed and waved at him. Husband, I'm over here. He rushed towards me, tripping in his haste. By the time he reached me, the river lanterns were nowhere to be seen. He frowned deeply and glared at me. Who told you to run around? Do you know how worried I was just now? I stuck out my tongue, pulled at his sleeve, and leaned against him coquettishly. All right, husband, let's not be angry. He held my hand tightly and whispered a warning. Don't do this again. The stall owner finished his work and looked at Shin Zhouyan and me with a smile. Sir, would you and your wife like to make a clay figure together? I cheerfully said, Yes. Can you make one of me and one of him? The stall owner replied with a grin. Sure. Since you and your wife are so loving, how about I make a clay figure of you both from your wedding? Yes, yes. I clapped my hands and smiled excitedly. Shin Zhouyan looked at me with a complex expression. In the end, he said nothing. After the clay figures were made, I took them from the stall owner, grinning from ear to ear. Husband, look, this clay figure really looks like us. Look, there's the red candle and the double happiness character. It's quite detailed. Husband, was our wedding like this too? Shin Zhouyan looked preoccupied, with a distracted demeanor. He only responded with a vague I snuggled into his embrace. I'll keep this clay figure carefully. In the future, when you're not by my side, let it keep me company as I sleep. Shin Zhouyan's hand on my hair paused. He smiled faintly. As you wish. For some reason, I felt his eyes were a bit red. 13. Shen Zhouyan was extremely considerate towards me. I proudly told my personal maid Qingzhu. I feel like the happiest person in the world. Qingzhu smiled but didn't say anything. Yet I always felt she didn't quite like me. One evening, after dinner, Shen Zhouyan said he wanted to take me somewhere. Where to? I looked at him curiously. He remained silent for a long time, only gently stroking my face. To the stargazing platform. From there, you can see the most stars in the entire Imperial city. I became excited immediately. Then, will you come with me, husband? He shook his head, his voice husky. I still have documents to review. I tugged at his sleeve. Then, I'll wait for you to finish reviewing the documents before we go together. He patted my head and said solemnly, Jing Ning, there are many documents. Be good and go ahead first. I'll come find you soon. Seeing his expression, I obediently nodded. All right then. I'll wait for you at the stargazing platform. He held my hand and walked step by step towards the stargazing platform. On the way, we passed the Imperial garden and encountered a pavilion. He asked if I wanted to rest there. I shook my head, looking puzzled. Why rest? Aren't we going to see the stars? He glanced at the pavilion and seemed to be choked up for some reason. All right, then let's not go. We'll go see the stars. I raised my hand to touch his temple. Your Majesty, have you been working hard on the documents lately? Don't be unhappy. He forced a smile. When he reached the base of the stargazing platform, he was about to leave. Husband, I called out to him. He suddenly trembled all over. Turning around, he couldn't even manage a smile. What's wrong? Reluctantly, I smiled at him. I'll wait for you to come. He said nothing more. He walked away quickly, not looking back, as if he would regret leaving if he went any slower. 14. As soon as I stepped into the stargazing tower, a man in white, who introduced himself as the National Master, approached and bowed to me. Consort, I will lead you up to the stargazing platform. I followed his steps, ascending layer after layer. National Master, why is the stargazing platform so high? The National Master smiled. If it weren't high, how could we see the stars? I had to suppress my doubts and continued to follow him. After what felt like an eternity, we finally arrived. Standing on the stargazing platform, I looked down, and my legs began to tremble uncontrollably. National Master, it's a bit too high here. I want to go down. But he shut the door behind us and locked it with a key. A bad premonition arose in my heart, and I ran to the door, trying to pry it open. National Master, can you hear me? I want to go down. There was no response. Despairing, I looked up. Shen Zhouyan had deceived me.
There were no stars in the sky.
Not a single one. Only the dark, cloudy sky. Occasionally, there were flashes of lightning. I yelled down at the platform. Someone help. Let me down quickly. Let me down now. No one answered. There was not a single person here. I stared at the tightly locked door in disbelief. Could it be that the National Master had deliberately locked me outside? Suddenly, lightning streaked toward me. I trembled all over, terrified as I looked at it. Help, help, help. Suddenly, the National Master's voice echoed from inside the stargazing tower. On this night of extreme een, on this day of exchanging lives. As he chanted, the lightning approached faster and faster. Help! I curled up, hugging my head tightly. I waited, though I didn't know for how long. The lightning was almost upon me. My body went limp, tears flowing down slowly. Your Majesty, weren't you supposed to come and keep me company? At this moment, a heart-wrenching shout came from inside the tower. Xiao Jinran, let her down. I regret it. I don't want to do this life-exchanging technique anymore. I clung tightly to the door handle. Husband, Shen Zhouyan. He ran frantically, leaping to the door. Jing Ning, wait for me. I'll get you out. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. I heard his furious roar.
Xiao Jinran.
I command you to release her. Do you want to defy the Imperial decree? The National Master laughed triumphantly. "It's too late, Your Majesty." As soon as his words fell, the lightning struck me directly. 15. Amidst the intense pain, I found myself drifting away from the stargazing platform, ascending into the sky. I heard the familiar voice of the celestial path. "Sorry, I'm late. The life exchange was successful, but I couldn't save your life. I could only preserve your soul." It turned out I hadn't ascended. I had died. In the moment I became a soul, everything came back to me. Shun Zhouyan had deliberately approached me. Shun Zhouyan had schemed to make me fall in love with him. Shun Zhouyan wanted to use my life to save his long-sick empress. "It's all right." I comforted the celestial path. Taking the opportunity, I wiped away the tears on my face. "Where should I go now?" The celestial path sighed softly. "Your mortal ties aren't finished yet, so you cannot enter reincarnation. Stay in the human realm for a while. Besides," his voice trailed off. "Look, someone is regretting deeply." I looked down. Shin Zhouyan had finally opened the tightly locked door. He embraced my lifeless body. "Jing Ning!" He shouted angrily at the sky. Unfortunately, he was holding only a cold body. The real me was up in the sky, watching him coldly.
16.
Shin Zhouyan ran with my corpse to the Imperial Medical Center. "Jing Ning, hold on a little longer. I'll make them save you." He gritted his teeth. "If you don't wake up, none of them will survive." I sighed softly. Didn't he realize? I was already dead. If he had arrived even a moment later, my body would have grown cold. His hope that the doctors could save me was laughable. Sure enough, the doctors checked my pulse, trembling as they knelt on the ground. None of them dared to treat me. "How is it that you incompetent doctors can't save the Emperor's consort?" He shouted at them fiercely. All the doctors bowed their heads. Only one, a younger one with some courage, timidly raised his head and said, "Your Majesty, the consort has already passed. Please, Your Majesty, accept your grief." "Accept my grief?" He drew a sword from a nearby guard and pointed it at the doctor. "If you don't save the consort, I'll make your families grieve." "Your Majesty, Your Majesty." From outside the door came the voice of a maid, filled with joy. I looked closely. It was Qingrua, who served the Empress. She looked somewhat like Qingzhu, who had come to serve me later. "Your Majesty, the Empress is better now, and she's in much better spirits. She's calling for you." But then, something seemed to occur to him. He stared blankly at my body in his arms. The life exchange technique. The life exchange technique succeeded. He suddenly burst into despairing tears. I looked at him coldly. Wasn't it his heartfelt wish to exchange my lifespan for his empress's? Now that the life exchange was successful, his empress received my lifespan and could stay with him for a long time. Why was he still putting on such a tragic display? 17. In front of the Changming Palace, I saw Empress Xiao Rou. She looked much more radiant than before. Her complexion had improved significantly. Dressed in elegant attire, she moved gracefully and exuded a gentle charm. Truly a beauty. With her presence, it was no wonder Shin Zhouyan looked down upon me, the daughter of a warrior. Her face was full of concern. Has His Majesty still refused to eat? The chief eunuch shook his head. His Majesty holds onto the consort's body and refuses to let go. He won't attend court, let alone dine. These past few days, the ministers have been working hard to manage the court. The Empress's expression grew more serious. The news of Consort Yu's death must be kept secret from the border regions. If General Yu finds out, the consequences could be dire. And also keep an eye on Madame Yu. Don't let her communicate with the border. I felt a pang of helplessness. The Empress's actions were indeed considering the greater good. If father, heartbroken over his daughter, abandoned his duties at the border, what if the Western tribes suddenly invaded? But just thinking about how father and my brother, far away, were unaware of my death made my eyes sting with tears. And mother must be heartbroken. Unfortunately, the celestial path said I still had unresolved mortal ties in this palace. I could only wander within these palace walls. Empress Xiao sighed deeply. I'll go in and persuade His Majesty. His Majesty will listen to me. But the chief eunuch hesitated. His Majesty said he will not see anyone. The Empress frowned slightly. Does that include me? The eunuch lowered his head. Empress Rou Wei stood in front of the Changming Palace for a long, long time. Even as the sun set and night fell, Shen Zhouyan did not allow her to enter. When she finally left, her face showed utter desolation. The next day, Shen Zhouyan sent an edict to her palace. In essence, the national master Xiao Jinran had been imprisoned in the inner dungeons for defying the edict. Moreover, His Majesty had discovered some correspondence between the national master and the empress. Xiao Jinran was Empress Rou Wei's elder brother. The life exchange ceremony that took place on the stargazing platform had been a conspiracy between them from start to finish. Empress Xiao, you are to be confined in the Fingyi Palace. We shall never meet again in this lifetime. After death, you will be buried in the consort's tomb. I saw the Empress collapse to the ground in shock after hearing the edict. She clutched the sleeve of the eunuch who delivered the edict, incredulously. This edict was issued by His Majesty himself? I don't believe it. I must ask His Majesty personally why, after once cherishing me so much and making so many promises, he is now treating me this way? Her voice trembled. I only wanted to live a little longer, to be with His Majesty. What have I done wrong? The eunuch pulled his sleeve away from her grasp. Unprepared, she fell to the ground. The only answer to her string of questions was the tightly shut door of the Fingyi Palace. 18. On the third day of confining himself in the palace, Shen Zhouyan finally emerged. The weather was too hot, and even though there was plenty of ice in the Changming Palace, I feared it would start to smell if left out too long. Shen Zhouyan, heeding advice, no longer held my body every day, but placed me in an ice coffin instead. This time, he did send people to capture the 2 disciples of the national master. The 2 of them knelt on the ground, shivering, occasionally glancing at the ice coffin where my body lay. I want to use my lifespan to revive the consort.
Do you have any methods for that?
His gaze was sharp, piercing like an arrow at the 2 men. One of them, trembling, spoke. Your Majesty, even if there is a life exchange technique, even if we have great powers, we cannot bring someone back to life. The other man, seeing his increasingly fierce expression, raised his head and mustered his courage. Perhaps only Master could try to do it. Shen Zhouyan's fist struck the nearby table hard. 2 days earlier, in his rage, he had sentenced National Master Xiao Jinran to death by hanging for defying the edict. He likely understood that he had destroyed the last opportunity with his own hands. Thus, his eyes reddened instantly. After dismissing the 2 disciples, he sent everyone away. Of course, he couldn't dismiss me, the soul. I saw his hand gently caressing the ice coffin, as if he were stroking my face. Jing Ning, I regret it. I should have cherished you. It's all my fault. I was blinded and caused your death. He rested his head against the ice coffin, crying uncontrollably. After an unknown amount of time, he lifted his head. Jing Ning, I want to make it up to you. I want to make you empress. 19. The emperor did not depose the empress, but declared consort Chenyu as the new empress. Moreover, this consort was already deceased. This caused a huge uproar in the court and among the people. Petitions for impeachment piled up on the desk in the Imperial study, but he pushed them aside, not opening a single one. Under his threats, the Ministry of Rites trembled as they prepared for the Imperial wedding. After the Minister of Rites left, he took out the clay figures from his sleeve. His hand carefully stroked the face of the female clay figure. Jing Ning, didn't you always say you wanted to know what our wedding would be like? I'll give you a grand wedding. On the day of the wedding, I finally saw the illusion Yuan who had been replaced before. I breathed a sigh of relief. She was only thinner and more haggard, but had not lost her life, as I feared. Shen Zhouyan ordered her to hold my tablet and participate in the wedding ceremony with him. The wedding was extremely strange. Perhaps only Shen Zhouyan truly immersed himself in the ceremony. Everyone else anxiously endured until the end of the ceremony. The wedding chamber was set up in the Changla Palace, where I once lived. Yun, with swollen eyes, placed my tablet in the wedding chamber and bowed deeply. Miss, Yin couldn't protect you. I am sorry for failing you. I tried to reach out to her, but found my hand was now transparent. I nearly forgot that I was a soul now. I could only watch helplessly as Yin left. Shun Zhouyan, his face dark, drove out all the celebrants from the wedding chamber. He sat on the bed I once slept in. For some reason, his gaze fell on the koi lamp that I had broken, leaving only the handle. Where's the lamp? Where's the lamp? He searched around frantically, like he did back then in the market, desperately searching for me. But that lamp had long been shattered and cleaned away. Where else could he find it? He searched for an unknown amount of time. Suddenly, he slumped to the ground, dejected. Jing Ning, Jing Ning. Tears streamed down his face. I think he only now truly realized. No matter how he tried to compensate me or punish those who intended to harm me, I, like that lamp, could never be retrieved. All right, seeing that your mortal ties are resolved, you may enter reincarnation. The celestial path's voice carried a hint of regret. Let's go. In the moment of entering reincarnation, Shun Zhouyan seemed to sense something. He reached out his hand, grasping at the air. Jing Ning, Jing Ning. Jing Ning, is that you? He grasped nothing. His hand fell in despair. The end. Extra chapter, Shun Zhouyan. The first time I followed the National Master's instructions to find the woman with a fate similar to Rou Wei's, it was raining heavily that day. The National Master said she was in the pavilion of the Imperial garden. When I saw her, she was sleeping soundly with her head resting on the stone table. I didn't wake her. Looking at her face and thinking about her future fate, I felt a twinge of sympathy. But why should I pity her? Rou Wei was so ill. As long as I could save Rou Wei's life, I would do anything. I could intentionally get close to her, give her koi lanterns and candied hawthorns to win her favor. I could set up a trap to frame the Yu family, then clear their name to create a hero saving the beauty scenario. But she discovered my intentions. When she broke free from me and ran out of the Changli Palace, my heart began to ache. She fell from the rockery. She didn't remember anything. The National Master said she was now easier to deceive. It was a prime opportunity for the life exchange. But I felt reluctant. When she held onto my arm, her eyes had traces of tears. Moreover, she had just suffered such severe injuries. How could I bear to let her die like this? But the National Master was right. Rou Wei was too ill. She couldn't wait much longer. That day, I had a thought and took her to the market. She nestled obediently in the clothes I wrapped around her. She had a very good temper. She loved to read storybooks. When she smiled, her eyes would curve into crescent moons. She didn't resemble the daughter of a warrior at all. After buying the river lanterns, I couldn't find her. I was suddenly overwhelmed by an inexplicable sense of panic. I seemed to realize that I had truly grown fond of her. I wasn't being kind to her with ulterior motives. I genuinely wanted to care for her. But I had to take her to the stargazing platform to exchange her life for Rou Wei's. Sometimes I felt like the most ridiculous person in the world. Since performing the life exchange was my wish, why should I regret it? I tried many methods to get her back. I no longer wished to see the scheming Xiao Rou. I knew I was the one who was most at fault, even though Xiao Jinran and Xiao Rou came up with the scheme. In the end, it was I who agreed to deceive Jing Ning. I endured my days with the burden of guilt towards her. The Yu family hated me intensely, but they dared not express their anger. General Yu eventually learned of Jing Ning's death. The next day, he refused to continue guarding the border, citing his failing health. I granted his request and also sent the young General Yu back to the capital. I heard that Madame Yu, growing older, had also become increasingly frail. I could not make amends to them. I could only bestow more titles upon the Yu family. But what use were these empty honors? I endured Inkuku years. For these years, I was constantly worried. The Imperial physicians said my health had deteriorated. My life was not long. I selected a young prince from the royal family. I recorded him under Jing Ning's name. I made him the crown prince. In my later years, I developed a severe cough. As I coughed, I coughed up a large amount of blood. The Imperial physician was always horrified when he saw the blood, but I instead smiled. The more ill I became, the shorter my remaining time. I would surely see you soon, Jing Ning. Extra chapter and